It's seriously dark times where Arsenal are concerned, so I had to get someone who's got a serious opinion, man. Laurie, what are you saying, my guy? One love for tuning in and being here.
No worries, man. Hey, listen, man, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it, man. Really do.
Come on, my guy. It's just a shame that we're not gloating about being within touching distance of winning certain things in May and having parades in Islington. We all know it's been a long time. It's a stress, man. Honestly, I don't know where to start, man. Arsenal have let us down. We're 13 points behind Liverpool. Let's start there, man. What's your feelings as an Arsenal fan? Like, if you can take me back to when last season ended and obviously how you felt going into this season and up until this point.
Yeah, sure. So at the end of last season, I was complimentary to the team. We came second to a very, very good Man City side. In fact, me and Curtis was joking the other day. It was almost like what I call the Usain Bolt syndrome. You know what I mean? Where you've come second, but the guy that come top or won the gold medal is so good that it's almost an accomplishment to come second. But then, of course, you're looking forward to this season now, and you're thinking, right, if we can improve. You know what I mean? Because I always say you improve from the top. If you can improve, bring in a striker, go again. Hopefully City won't be as good as they were that season. And if they slip up, we'll be right there to capitalize. Well, one of those things did happen, which is that City have slipped up. Unfortunately, though, we have not capitalized. Liverpool have. And that is a massive disappointment. When you think about it, everybody knows it's not rocket science. Where we've let ourselves down this season is in the forward line. We didn't sign a striker, and I think that was nigh on criminal. There's been neglect, and
gross negligence.
The way things have just, like, I wouldn't say capitulated, but it's almost capitulation, isn't it? I mean, things have just kind of gone downhill, man. Combination of the injuries, not having a backup striker, not signing anyone in January. It's just been a catalogue of errors, man. And I think you could look no worse than the board. They've got a lot to answer for.
Is it all on the board, though, for you?
For the most part, yes. I mean, listen, I think Arteta does have to take some of the blame. Naturally, he's the manager.
Give us some specifics for Arteta and the board.
Right. So with the board, it's pretty obvious. They've not signed anyone. I would say that Edu leaving as well, there's definitely something in that. I don't know. I don't have any like inside knowledge of anything going on. But if you just look at the aesthetics of that, Edu leaving halfway through the season, to me, just don't make no sense. And he's effectively on gardening leave. You know what I mean? So that job that he's going to take up with the Forest Group, by the way, he was offered that job before. He turned it down. Here we are, halfway through a season where we're supposed to be fighting on all fronts. Edu, who's your chief recruiter, basically, director of football, he's gone. He's not been replaced. And there's just something very untoward about that. But anyway, that's that. But yeah, the board have failed to back the manager as far as bringing in players. And the manager, he also has something to answer for in terms of earlier on when he was asked, not this latest window, before, he was basically saying he was happy with the players he had and he wants to work with a small squad. Unfortunately, those words appear to have come back to bite him in the butt.
I'm on the arse, man.
You know what I mean? So yeah, there's a catalogue of errors. Primarily the board do seem to be the ones that have the most of the responsibility. But yeah, Arteta has to take his fair share as well. And even the players as well. I mean, let's be honest, man. A lot of the players, I wouldn't say a lot, but there's some notable players in there that have not performed up to the levels that we would expect. Neither they would expect. I think they would agree as well that they've not, you know what I mean, up their levels. They've not been at it this season.
You know what, Laurie? It's sad, yeah. I would love to say you're wrong about everything you said, but you're not. And that's the damning thing about this football club, in that, for me, I don't think it's just one aspect. I'm not here to say, you know, Mikel Arteta into the world and Mikel Arteta out, nor do I think I can just question mark the board or get onto the board, but evidently they've let us down. And I do think, and I'm sure you would agree, for a long time as we've been at the Emirates, there's been a lot of talking and it's not necessarily correlated on the pitch. I do think there was a period, to be fair to the whole football club, where I can say I was hearing talk and you lot were following through. I'd say the 2022-23 season, last year. This year for me is just regression. And I do wonder, with Mikel Arteta being here for 6 years, with us trying to win a title for 3 years, how physically damning that is on these players, like the key players, to get up and go in again. And we'll get into the summer, but there's a lot to do. I want to kind of peel it back, yeah, because you mentioned something and it is quite crucial. It was mainly said in the last 2 years, in that if City do fall off, we're there to pounce. Obviously, they have fallen off. It's an anomaly of a season for them. Liverpool, who, not necessarily yourself or me, but a lot of fans were sitting there and saying they got a rebuild, a manager, etc. I don't feel they're necessarily wrong. I think next season is the mad season for Liverpool, because you're at the top, as you said. The only way is down. 3 key players' contracts running out. I'm sure Liverpool fans are not happy with their season. But there was a lot of Arsenal fans that were saying, you know how it is in the summer when you're doing your league predictions and top 4. Not many people were watching Liverpool. And then we got into that. A lot of Arsenal fans, were saying Liverpool can't just rely on Salah. They can't do this, that. They're going to get injuries, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, credit to them. They're walking the league with 13, 14 points. But as we know, yeah, and we said, you know, City drop off, we need to be the ones to pounce. How damning is it that it's Liverpool with a new manager, with question marks over the players' futures, with actually their fans having question marks of their owners? Like, how damning is it that at the end of the day, we're doing a lot of explaining again, and Liverpool are the ones about to win?
Yeah, you know what, you're right. I mean, it is quite damning, to be honest. I've got to admit, I am very disappointed with the way this season appears to be panning out, because it's not just the league. As you know, we're out of the domestic cups. We're still in the Champions League, although, you know, I mean, if we get through PSV, then we've got the spectre of either Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid in the following round. Man. So you could be potentially looking at a season where we've won nothing, when at the start of the season, we're all hopeful that this season we were going to win something major, you know what I mean, let alone. I think going out of the domestic cups has been very disappointing. And the league challenge just appears to have just slipped away. It's just
the deadest challenge we've had of the 3 years, man.
Yeah. And like they say, Deluded, and you hinted at it earlier, if you're not improving in this level of football, you're regressing. So if you're not strengthening, if you're not being ambitious and looking to bring in players and improve the levels, basically what you're doing is you're stagnating and you're regressing. And that's what's happened, because Liverpool have kind of come from left field. I mean, if you think about it, when Arne Slot took over at Liverpool, it could be argued that he was going to go through that transition phase. And a lot of people are saying he's going to change the style of the football. It's going to take him time. You know what I mean? Most people's thoughts were it's going to take him time to get Liverpool back up to speed. So that should have made it even more so that if City slip away from their previous very high levels, then we would be the ones to assume that position. The fact that we've not done it, the fact that it would appear to all intents and purposes now that the title is way beyond, you know what I mean?
You're wishing on a star and stars.
No, the title's gone. For me, I don't know about you, Deluded, but the title hopes ended on Saturday when we failed to beat West Ham. And as I said,
ended in the summer for me, man, because kind of what you said. Yeah, bro, because for me, you know me and you have spoken for years, yeah. It's not that I don't have hope in my team and things, but you're older than me. You've seen it. When you're going for a league, if we're doing this challenging thing, we've got enough. But you see, when you want to get over the line, bro, there's certain questions that needs to be answered. And I think there was a lot of complacency. We was assuming like the purple patch players, their form would do their thing. We'd have no injuries. We're kind of leveraging indirectly the transitional periods of other clubs. And I don't like that. I think we needed a spark. Now, with the greatest of respect to Calafiori, who I like, but he's moving a bit mad. Mikel Merino is doing a job up front. Raheem Sterling, the yard man, and Raya. You don't have that summer, bro. Like, that summer's dead. Like, we didn't go up the gears. And I've heard my manager say too many times we've got one of the smallest squads, and whether it's down to him being suggested players and not getting them, whether he's asked for players and the board haven't made it happen, I think we've indirectly signed up for what we signed up for. Like me and you have said, and every Arsenal fan for years, what happens if Saka gets injured? What happens with Benjamin White? What if this? What if that? The striker thing, like you said. And it's a bit mad because you kind of touched on it, and it's a bit weird in that I can't say it's a capitulation. For me, it definitely is, because we're flirting, we're the bridesmaid, never the bride kind of thing. But it is, in the last 2 games, we've dropped points, but we was on a fairly clean run. Me and you cry about needing an attacker. We're up there for goals. I don't think we have that throughout the whole team, that kind of guile we had defensively, but we're up there. So it's like, for me, we've got a decent foundation. It's just about kicking on. Like, people would say arguably was the best team of last year, but then you could flip that and say City were, because they were the ones that led it. And it makes me question, like, I do think the players and Arteta want to win the league, but collectively as a club, are we doing everything to get over the line? And I want to ask you something, yeah, because you kind of touched on it. What do you make of Arsenal on the pitch in crunch time moments? So like sink or swim, potentially you could say West Ham, you could probably say the 2 League Cups. Like, do you think Mikel Arteta and the players have an issue when it's sink or swim and they just have to get it done kind of thing? Because I do think that.
Yeah, you know what? That is a very good point you make, and it's a point that a lot of people have said. They basically questioned our bottle, and really and truly, you do have to question it, really, don't you? I mean, there have been times this season when, you know, we would play teams that we should have beaten. West Ham, the most recent one, is an example. Coming into that game, West Ham were like in 16th place. Graham Potter took over from Lopetegui. I think when he took over from Lopetegui, they were in 14th place. I think he had something like 6 or 7 games, and he'd only won 1 of those games. So you could hardly say that West Ham were experiencing new manager bounce. If anything, it was the opposite. They were struggling. They come to the Emirates. We'd beaten them already this season, don't forget. I think it was really? 5-2. Yeah. So you're thinking, okay, the title is still likely, but you've got to win this game, right? So then what happens? We come up short against West Ham in what, for me, was probably our worst performance of the season. So you can only opine that the pressure got to those guys and they weren't able to perform. Because I would say, even with injuries, you should be beating West Ham at home. So, yeah, when people say, oh, they bottled it or they don't have the mentality and, you know what I mean, they don't have the players in the team, you do have to kind of, you know what I mean, admit that there is an issue there. I mean, so for example, like you got Martin Odegaard, who for me is a tremendous player. I like him a lot. Very good on the eye. When he's playing well and he's functioning properly, he's a very good player. But is he able to drag you through those dark moments? I'm not so sure. And he's the captain of Arsenal Football Club, and he's going through a rough time at the moment. You know what I mean? So yeah, you do have to question the mentality of the players. I'm sorry to have to say that, but it is true. Until we go on and win the major honours, there will always be that question mark. I mean, Mikel Arteta, like you said, he's in his 6th season now. He won the FA Cup in his 1st season with a team that wasn't even his team. During his tenure as manager, I think he spent something like 730 odd million, I think it is. Call it 700. Some people are saying 750. Call it between 730 and 750 million, which is a lot of money. In that time, I think he's brought 31 players into the club. And I've got to be honest, a lot of those guys have not performed up to the levels, you know what I mean? So
he's been quite kind to them, really.
He's done a lot of things right, Mikel Arteta. I mean, from when you think about where he took the club from. But a lot of people are now questioning, can he make that transition from improving to going on and winning things, especially the major runners, the leagues, the Champions Leagues? And I think that's still open to question, man.
I think you're bang on the money, and I think, you know, people will look at that as harsh, but Mikel Arteta says it himself. When people were saying we're the best team of 2024, etc., he literally said, yeah, that's great, but we need to get over the line. I do think he wants to win a trophy, and I think with the players, for me, with Arteta, it's more how you're going about it. And obviously he's learning on the job, but at the same time, this is Arsenal Football Club, as you said rightly. So he's got some bad, he's got some good. At the end of the day, you've got us to this point where arguably we're the second best team. It feels like we're within touching distance, but then I have to look at it harsher by those metrics. And there's something about getting over the line. I do think he's a great coach. I do think he talks with conviction, but I love my football club more, and I don't know if you're the guy to get over the line. And every year you don't, there's question marks. Where do you stand? Because I'm sure, obviously, with the AFTV work, etc., you know what I'm about to ask you. Is it? Do you think we need to try something new? Do we need to get rid? Because neither one guarantees success. But at what point do we have to try something new? Because doing the same thing could get us somewhere, but at the same time, we could be signing up for years like this.
No, that's another good question. And you know what? I'm not sitting on the fence. This is my honest opinion. I think we need to leave it till the end of the season. I think we need to wait till the end of the season, see where Arsenal finish, see what happens in the Champions League, and then you can make an assessment as to whether this guy has what it takes to get us over the line in terms of winning trophies. I mean, in a way, he does have a bit of a get out an excuse because of the nature of the injuries. I mean, it was interesting because last season, if you remember, we were quite fortunate with injuries. However, this season has been the opposite. We've been quite unfortunate with injuries.
Fact.
So the injuries situation cannot be discounted. However, also, you do have to take into consideration the lack of activity in the transfer market. We still don't know how much of a part Mikel Arteta has played there. So, for example, I don't know about you, but the Ollie Watkins thing kind of summed Arsenal up for me. So, Ollie Watkins, we were led to believe was available. I do believe he was available. I think apparently Aston Villa were asking for 60 million. We went in with a lowball offer of 40 million. Villa turned that down. Obviously, they're going to turn that down. But from what I understand, we didn't go back with a meaningful offer. Now, when you consider that we don't have a striker worthy of the name, we're having to play midfielders, a guy who, let's be honest, Mikel Merino, he's not, I'm going to be fair to him, he's not had a pre-season and he's not been at the club long, he's had a few injuries, but he's not even been good in midfield, really, has he? So you're now expecting him to lead the line with Havertz being out. That is a fanciful notion if you think that guy is going to come in and score the goals that we need. But you did, being Arsenal, have an option to sign Ollie Watkins, who's a good player, England international, goal scorer, good player. He could have done a job for Arsenal. Now, the board did what I think is a business decision over a football decision. They looked at his age and thought, oh, why are we going to pay 60 million?
There's no resale value and all that.
Yeah, he's got no resale value. That's the business decision. However, the football decision is we're still in the Premier League. We're still in the Champions League. We don't have a recognised striker. We're fraught with injuries. If we bring Ollie Watkins in, even, I know it's a bit of short-termism, but you know what I mean? Let's give ourselves a fighting chance of winning something, of doing something, of staying in the race. They decided to do the business decision, and here we are now without a striker. So that kind of tells you a lot about the club.
I think you're bang on the money, Laurie, man. And that's where, like, I kind of have to, obviously, I think as Arsenal fans during the Emirates era, we've had this natural pessimism because even if you've been optimistic, you've been burnt. And to go back to what you said earlier about the whole 700 million thing, I do think, I hate to use the word context, but there is context and excuses I'll give Arteta because of what we had to do at certain times. But for me, it's in these last 3 years where can you get over the line? I have to look at harshly how we're spending money. And Kai Havertz, Mikel Merino, all of these, he's got some right, but these are not really making sense. I personally think we have to go back to the kind of basics. And you made a great point about January in that the club are doing business decisions. I don't know how much sympathy I can have for Arteta because, yeah, I can sit here and say, Cronky this, the board that. If I take your words at face value, me and you both know he's never gonna say the truth about his employers, but he does say they're the best owners, they're the best this, they're the best that. They have given you a new job, they have made you a manager to the point where Edu employed you. You're having a say in Edu's replacement, so you have got a lot of kind of stuff in that regards and credit, and the club do like you, and you can't be that dismayed about it because you signed a new contract worth 50 mil a year. So you like your project, you like what you're doing in that regards. So it's like, how far does it go? And for me, January January, like I said, for me, my kind of optimism went in the summer, because I do think I gave it a 6 out of 10 in the summer, because I did like Calafiori signing, and mainly for outgoings, but we didn't sign those game changers. Now, Laurie, if I forgive them for the summer, like I'll forgive them for the summer. As you said there, last chance saloon. January's got to make something happen, whether you're going to overpay for Ollie Watkins, whether you're going to get some hidden youngster, whether you're going to do something in the low market. I felt you needed to do something, and you ultimately did nothing. I think you signed up for this, and Declan Rice talks too much on the best of days, right? But he kind of alluded to how the players might feel. He was like, oh, the gaffer had to play Kieran Tierney left wing. I'm sure we'll bring players in. If you're the players, us as fans, we know what missing Saka and this one and that one does. But these lot should know more than anything. They're the ones training and stuff. So I wonder how difficult it is for them to keep getting up for a title challenge, how they would have felt now, and really what we was doing. And it's I don't want to sound like I know it all, but I think every football fan knew once that January window closed, to go with the injuries we already had, there was obviously going to be more. How do you feel about the summer then? Because we are at that stage of keeping the powder dry and war chest shouts, and we're going to do this, that, and the other. Do you have any optimism of us doing what we need to do in the summer? And is it a thing where, or is it a thing better yet where it's show and prove now? Like, if it show me, just make sure the players arrive and we can have a conversation then.
I think it's the latter, bro. I think they need to show and prove, because let's be honest, man, the transfer activity has not been good. And let's be honest as well, man, that summer transfer window that you spoke about, yes, the players that you mentioned are good players, but if we're going to be brutally honest, they've not really produced on the pitch to the levels that
they've not raised the level
would expect. Calafiori, Marino, you know what I mean? It's still, the jury's still very much out, and I'm not criticizing those guys. I'm just speaking the truth.
The reality of the situation.
Yeah, it is. It's the reality of the situation. Is those players have not blossomed into the types of players that we thought that they would be. There's still time, and like I said, Mourinho especially has had his. Well, both have had their injury problems and had their injury issues, and Mourinho especially didn't have a pre-season, so. You know, and
he got injured early on, man. Yeah, Gabriel Magalhaes fell on him, which boy.
Yeah, so you know, there's still time, but the jury's out on those. And like I said, not signing a striker, Deluded, was where it all started to go wrong, because I did a show with the rest of the guys at AFTV at the start of the season. We sat around a table and we gave our predictions for the season, and we were asked to say where you think Arsenal would finish. I remember that distinctly. And when I was asked, I said to Ludo, I said, look, I'd love to be able to sit here now and predict that Arsenal would win the title. This was back in the summer. We're talking like July, August time, before the season started. And I said, I remember it well, I said, the fact that we haven't signed a striker yet, if we don't sign a striker worthy of the name, I cannot see us having enough to usurp Man City. And I goes, so for that reason, I'm going to put Arsenal second. And some of them, man, kind of looked at me a bit side-eyed.
You're being negative, Laurie, man.
They were saying, no, man, we're going to win the title. I said, well, I'd love to be able to say that. But unless you bring in the personnel to do that, I don't really see how we improve. You know what I mean? And we didn't do it. And here we are. And just to add to that point you made about the January window, I don't know about you. Maybe you can have your say on this, but from what I understand, Mikel Arteta was in favour of bringing Ollie Watkins in. I think he was that desperate. He wanted to bring Ollie Watkins in. It would appear that he was overruled by the board, by the money men, who said, actually, no, financially, it doesn't make sense. It's not viable. And this is what I'm talking about. Business decisions overriding football decisions, and that's costing the club dear. Because let's say they did bring Ollie Watkins in and he was successful. We do, you know what I mean, challenge for the league and, you know what I mean, do well in the Champions League. The revenue you're going to get from those companies would more than pay back that in the long term anyway. You have to take
care about the balance sheet, man.
You have to take those gambles. We didn't. And here we are, suffering.
And that's what I think you're bang on the money. And that's where I say everybody's in it. I do think there's situations where Arteta has been given a budget and I don't think he's managed it well. But in January, I think it was a thing of Donny was begging for players and they weren't making players happen. Yeah. And that's why I have to be a bit harsh on everyone, because Arteta, even if I feel some sympathy for you, the reality is, rightly or wrongly, this is the job. This is the remit kind of thing. So it's just a mess, man, across all fragments. Like you said, Edu left. There's been no replacement. We've for a manager that talks about maximizing the market, and I do think you're right in that his language was very distinctive in January about we're trying to do this, we're trying to do that. He's normally a bit cute and clever, maybe because the summer you've got more time. But that's where I think everybody has to hold their hands up. And you said a crucial point there, and I think it kind of answers what we're on about in that the revenue you would get just by accomplishing stuff would be great. But we didn't do that. I have to ask you though, yeah, because I do think, as much as I think we need a left winger, we need a striker, we need a midfielder, we need this, we need that, yeah, and signings would help. Definitely a striker. We turn a couple defeats into draws into victories. But I do think there's a lot Mikel Arteta has to arrest on the football field. I do think 2022-23 was very good going forward, but we couldn't really defend. Last season, I think we was very professional, and I really liked our mentality. I wanted to combine those 2 seasons and come into this year with some added quality and move mad. I do think we're quite predictable. I do think we're too systematic. I do think we've just, obviously he's got a plan B and C, but it's almost like it's a plan A. If that don't work, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And he'll only change if he's desperate. And I know he's desperate right now because I've seen Tierney come on the pitch in the last game, and I'm seeing Zinchenko play in midfield. So I know there's desperation in that regard. But purely from a sporting perspective, do you think it's as white and black as you get a striker, you get this, you get that, and everything goes to bang? Or is there stuff Arteta has to change? Because I can't say there's a bunch of, I know statistically, but I don't feel there's a bunch of clear-cut chances for us in the final third, personally.
No, you're right about that. And that is a point that a lot of people are talking about at the moment. In fact, not just even with Arsenal, there's a school of thought. I'm not sure if you saw an interview that Gary Neville gave recently where he's talking about possession-based football might be dying. Because what tends to happen with a lot of teams is that they're quite content. They will say, all right, you get the ball, you can have the ball. We'll just sit back 2 banks of 4 and you got to try and break us down.
Like what West Ham did.
And yeah, exactly. West Ham, you got to give them credit. Graham Potter got his tactics spot on that day. And by the way, Graham Potter, I think he's outmaneuvered Arteta now 3 times out of 4. I think
only Klopp and Pep have better records against Arteta than him, or at the Emirates or something like that.
So, you know what I mean? They say that possession is 9/10 of the law, which is like the old school way. However,
that's what you do with it.
As we know, teams having all the possession doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win games or create clear-cut chances. And it's got to be said that we've been guilty of that this season. We're very, like you said, predictable. You know what I mean? Side to side, passing around.
Waiting for the perfect opening, which I'm not against, but
we don't shoot from outside the box. That is a big failing for Arsenal. I think that's something that Mikel Arteta does need to stand account for. Also, sometimes the build-up play, the tempo is too slow. You know what I mean? There's this expression that they talk, quick ball, because when the ball is passed quickly, and that is not easy to do, by the way. But when you move the ball quickly, you can
move to do it as well.
And then you create openings. But if it's too slow, if it's turgid, if there's slow build-up, then obviously the team that are sitting, they can see all playing out before them. And they just sit back and wait for you to either overrun it, you know what I mean, get dispossessed, and then they hit you on the counter, you know what I mean? So that's exactly what happened against West Ham, you know what I mean?
And that's the issue, man. I do think some of it is self-inflicted. Like I said, I do think Arteta, from a coaching perspective, you know me, I like football like that and all the fine margins and stuff. I think he's wavy at all of that, but at the same time, it does feel like you need to change. And I do think in the Premier League, where obviously people might not agree because Pep Guardiola is where they are, but I'd say Pep Guardiola's up here. Everything else is subjective. But it's like a level playing field. You got Arteta, you got Eddie Howe, you got Potter, as you said, you got Areola. You've got a couple of these kind of managers that are like nerds, really. And it does feel, obviously, Arteta's outmaneuvered them a lot of the time and we're second and whatnot, but it does feel like any manager that's half on what Mikel Arteta's on and can think about those things, they kind of have his number. Like I think we all know, like Laurie said, you're compact, you're rigid, 2 banks of 4. We're not necessarily going to break you down. Where do you stand on the players though? Because as much as I feel the players, you know, haven't been helped by the tactics at times, because ultimately they can take responsibility, but they're being told to do something by the gaffer. We've spoken about the board, but at the end of the day, The players are the ones playing. I do think Mikel Arteta is burnt by the 2022-23 season, so we're a bit defensive in that regards. But I don't feel the players have stepped up 9 times out of 10. Like, I don't want to scapegoat, but there's quite. I saw a comment like people are asking what's going on with Odegaard. Should he lose his captaincy? We've had 2 kids. Let's be real. We've had 2 17, 18-year-olds 9 times out of 10 been better than a lot of people recently. Yeah. Magalhaes has done his thing. Timber's done his thing. Saka, when he was here, was doing his thing. Other than that, it's a bit mad. Like, where are you at with the players? Because they're the ones that are going to have to sit in this L.
Yeah, you know what? You're so right. I mean, you mentioned it before. It's a collective thing. It's a collective responsibility. And we've spoken about the board and the lack of transfer activity, spoken about injuries. We've spoken about the manager having to take his fair share, but the players also have to stand up and be counted, man. And we've got to be honest, man. There's been a few of them that have underperformed this season. You mentioned Odegaard. I nearly said Overmars there. You mentioned Odegaard.
We'd need him now. I wish we had him, mate.
What we would do for someone like that right now. But Odegaard, it has to be said, has been disappointing this season, and which is a shame for me to say that, because normally the guy's one of my favorite players. Like I said, when he's on song, he's a joy to watch. He's aesthetically very pleasing. However, he suffered a couple of injuries this season, and he's not been himself. In fact, in recent games, he's been quite poor. I mean, if he'd not been captain, I'm sure there'd be strong calls to drop him. I don't know quite what it is. Is it a confidence thing? Is there still remnants of the injury affecting him?
Is it everything for that, or them things?
Yeah, it could be many things. But he's definitely not been at it, and we do rely upon him. I mean, last season he was really good. This season he's been below par. That's just the truth. Even though I like him, I've got to be honest. Moving up top, Leandro Trossard, man. Again, last night, poor. How he stayed on the pitch for 90 minutes yesterday.
Because we ain't got no one, and the gaffer's not playing them kids on the bench, man.
Yeah, but he took Wanyeri off, and he left Trossard on, which was baffling to me. Anyway.
I think it's because Ethan. I think Laurie. I think it's because with Ethan, like he's a young man. He's playing a lot of minutes. He's holding his hammy and stuff, and that's what annoyed me about January. Because it's one thing talking about the players that are fit. They're gonna get run into the ground even more. Like, but you are right. He took him off, and again, Ethan was one of our brighter players. Like a 17, 18-year-old. It's mad.
One of the few.
If anything,
Gabby Martinelli has not lived up to the billing. I mean, I know just before he got injured, he was starting to improve. I think he's got something like 7 Premier League goals. But then a few seasons back, the man was, I think he got 15 or something like that. So
there were shouts that is his ceiling higher than Saka's and all of that.
Exactly. So he's leveled off. There's a few, man. I mean, even Declan Rice, last season he was brilliant. This season, he's not hit the levels. You know what I mean? That's just the truth.
Where you at with him in the 8?
Well, there's a strong argument for saying that he's better in the 6. At the moment, we've got Partey in the 6. And Partey, by the way, has probably been Arsenal's best midfielder this season overall.
And his contract is running out.
No sign of him signing a new one. So I think it's fair to assume that he might be on his way next season. We don't know, but that's kind of how it's looking. Even William Saliba, Deluded, who is comfortably one of the best Premier League.
I was hoping you wouldn't say his name.
But listen, man, that guy he's been sensational. Last season, he was a Premier League Defender of the Year, right? This season, you've got to say he's not hit those levels. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not trying to be too harsh because I still rate the guy highly, and the defense is a strong part of our team, as we saw last night. But you could go right through the team, man, and
shout out Raya as well. He's been all right.
Yeah, Raya's been very good. Timber's been very good. But there's been a few guys, senior players in the team that have not hit the heights. And then I said, you add on top of that injuries, you know what I mean? And like I said, lack of new players coming in to really give the team that boost. And you can kind of understand we are where we are. And it's all very disappointing.
Where are you at with top 4? Because mathematically, we could draw ourselves out into a top 4 race, and some fans are saying that. I think I really don't want to say we're a shoo-in for top 4, but I'm relatively confident. But if you don't stay humble in life can really humble you, and mathematically, it's up for grabs. And to be fair, definitely drawing against Nottingham Forest isn't the worst result, but where they're at in the table and how they're performing is better. We didn't lose. Like, are we drawing ourselves out into the top 4? Because I think this comment is right. It could have weight. If top 4 wasn't 30 in the Jan window, I bet they would have signed players to go for it. I do think the board would have acted with that.
That's probably true, because the owners, let's face it, the revenue that the clubs get from Champions League football is such that they're desperate for teams to stay in the top 4. So that seems to be the ambition of these owners. Top 4 football, they seem to be happy with that. Very reminiscent of the Wenger years. Remember under Wenger, it would appear that as long as we qualified for the Champions League, then the owners seem to be content with that. But us as fans, we want to win things. And even players, I mean, we spoke about Saliba. You know, it's common knowledge that Real Madrid have expressed an interest in. Now, I could see a scenario whereby if we don't win anything, guys like that might be thinking, well, you know what I mean? Real Madrid.
We've had a good run here. It's time to
you
go
know
win
what I mean?
stuff now.
Maybe it's time to cut ties with Arsenal and go to Madrid. And you could hardly blame him, really. You know what I mean? Because when you're talking about William Saliba, you know, you're not talking about a guy that was born in Islington or North London or even in England. He's French. He's a professional footballer, first and foremost.
It's Real Madrid.
Professional footballers of his talent, they want to win things. If you can't do that at Arsenal and you've got clubs like Real Madrid knocking at his door.
I know the French boys over there as well.
And yeah, he's going on international duty and he's got Mbappe and all them, man. They say, yo, man. Like Arsenal's
still at Arsenal. He's still playing with Zinchenko and that. Come over, sunny Spain, man.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That would be very hard for a young man to turn down. Let's just be honest. So there is a danger that, you know what I mean, we could lose certain players, you know what I mean, if we don't start winning things as well, which makes a job for us to win things even harder. You know what I mean? And even I like this comment here from Skills.
Arteta I knew, that's why I left it there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that because Arteta might think if the board are not backing him and everything's coming down on me and I'm getting interest from other clubs and they may be saying to, look, if you come to us, we will give you the backing that you need. He might be thinking, listen, I've taken Arsenal as far as I can take them under the conditions I'm working in. Maybe it's time for me to seek out past this year because Arteta is a good manager. I don't think there's anybody that, regardless of what you say about.
Yeah, it's the only question is, can you win? Can you get over that line? In which you might not get this shelf life.
He might think to himself, well, look, I'm giving it everything, right? The board are not backing me, and I'm playing that game whereby, you know what I mean, I'm bigging up the board in front of the fans and the press, but they're not backing me. The fans are saying, Arteta out, Arteta out. Do I want that on my watch? He might think to himself, you know what, this might be a good time for us to part ways. Then what do the club do? So there's so many scenarios, man, that could envelop. You know what I mean? It's just crazy.
And that's where it's crazy because you can't say keeping Arteta is going to guarantee. Yeah, there's building blocks and all of that stuff, but you can't say keeping him is going to guarantee us getting over the line because that's a big cloud. And I think the only cloud for me over his head for all of his coaching stuff, I think it's a get over the line thing. Even if I know the goalposts change, and you know, if you won a league and FA Cup, people would say you still ain't got over the line, but it will get you some credit in the bank. You look at when Klopp I think he took over at Liverpool in like 2015. They were getting to finals. They were kind of doing all of that kind of stuff. And you can't guarantee that our board necessarily are going to find the right kind of guy. I think you made a crucial point in that it does feel very Wenger-y in that you get top 4 if you do anything beyond that, it's a bonus. I would say for Arteta, though, you have been here 6 years. You have had 3 cracks at winning a trophy. As much as I like you, I have to remember this is Arsenal. And if I play devil's advocate, this and assume it could be a relationship of interest, bro. You're a novice manager, respectfully. You're managing a massive club at Arsenal, gone through a lot, getting a lot of responsibility. They're cool with it. So it's almost a relationship of kind of convenience. I don't know if he'd walk away from his 15 million a year contract, but I would say at the halfway point of what he signed it in the summer, right? And that's a 3-year deal. Yeah. So whenever it's like a halfway point or getting towards the renewals, I'm interested to see what we're going to do there. I think everybody needs to accept, even if Arteta wasn't a great coach and wasn't a good manager, our club or the board, they're not going to sack him, give him his payout for that 15 mil and his coaching staff and bring another one in and do the transfer stuff. Rightly or wrongly, that's just not how we operate, man. It just is what it is, man.
Yeah, so I can't see that happening. And like I said, it does very much depend on where Arsenal finish in the season, because if they finish, as I think they will, in second, then I can't see those scenarios happening. However, if the club was to completely implode, and say we, you know what I mean, finish down the table. I think Champions League places might be even 5 this season anyway. But
so that might even be added to the complacency in January.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but if we implode completely, then those questions might surface. But I like to think we're going to finish second. But the problem with that is that the disappointment is palpable. You know what I mean? A lot of people, normally a team finishes second, you think, yeah, okay, that's good. This season, Arsenal finishing second, especially the way things have gone, it's not a good look for the club. You know what I mean?
It's in spite of everything. And that's why I feel like that's why I got you on the channel, because I think you need to kind of quote unquote be balanced. You need to look at everything, because you could do the negative thing, or you could do the overly positive thing and kind of bury your head in the sand. You know, the last 16 games on paper, we haven't suffered that many L's. We're crying about attack and defense. There's a lot of positive statistics and positive movements and things, but it's about the fine margins. You know, Mikel Arteta makes a big song and dance about talking about fine margins, and I think he's right for what it's worth. I just don't think we're on the right side of those fine margins too often than not. You mentioned the West Ham game being the worst performance of the season, which I think you're not wrong. And then I think about Bournemouth, regardless of any red cards. And then I think about Newcastle, regardless of that, and some silly draws going back to the Aston Villa game. It's these kind of fine margins that we need to get out of our system if we want to go to the next level, if I'm honest with you. I want to ask you a last question before I let you get out, Vic. I know you got a meeting. I'm just leaving this on screen. Hi,
no, I'm enjoying it, man. But yeah, go ahead.
No worries, man. Hi, DG and Laurie. Do you think Arteta still has the trust in his abilities in the change room? Would appreciate it if you consider this. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think he does. I've not seen any signs that he doesn't. I think Arteta has been quite cute, actually, that he's assembled quite a young squad, and he looks like the type of person that has quite a strong relationship with the players. They look up to him.
They haven't down tools yet, so that's a
I don't think you can say that. I think there are issues concerning the mentality of the team to getting over certain challenges, but I do think that the players are with him. I've not seen anything to the contrary. The West Ham game, like I said, it could have been an aberration. It could be tiredness. It could be the injuries. It could be just the overwhelming vibe.
It's everything.
That day was just a bad vibe. You know what I mean? Some day you get those days. In life, let alone football, you just get days when things don't go right. But that was a poor day. I'll give the team some credit. I mean, listen, yesterday's game against Forest, it wasn't aesthetically a good game to watch. I thought there
was a reaction in the first half, I felt, but same old.
But I wasn't especially disappointed with the result. And I'll tell you why. Because you've got to remember that Forest are a good team. They're strong at home. And we were not in our best moment when we went there. So to get a draw,
you can't win, don't lose.
You know what I mean? To not scoring, I think was a decent effort. It wasn't a great game, it wasn't a great result, but it was decent, especially when you consider that we were so poor on Saturday against West Ham. So it wasn't the worst result in the world. I think a draw was probably a fair result, and then we move. I mean, we still got the Champions League game on Wednesday. It'll be interesting to see how that goes.
How hopeful are you in the Champions League as well, man? Like, hand on heart, how hopeful, man? Like, because it is what we got.
I was dreading you would say that. No, I mean, at the end of the day, man, you have to. I know I'm going to sound a bit cliched when I say this. You have to take every game as it comes. Now, PSV.
I thought this was Laurie, not Robbie, man. Shout out.
Yeah, I know it sounds a bit cliche, but it is the truth. You have to take every game as it comes. PSV, let's be honest, Deluded, they are a decent side, but come on now. Arsenal should be beating them.
It should be.
However,
but then Olympiacos comes to mind. Sporting.
Yes, I was about to say that. You look at our recent history in Europe, it's not good. And PSV do have some threats, man. Noah Lang, Bakayoko, and them, man.
I'm scared of the away game.
They'll be confident. They'll be looking at Arsenal thinking, nah, man, this is not the Arsenal of
we
last
can move to them.
Yeah, we can move to them. So it's gonna be tough. But we have beaten PSV before, and I think we can beat them again. Obviously, the game on Wednesday is key because we got the second leg back at the Emirates. So if we can go there and avoid defeat, you got to fancy us that we can get the job done. So I am looking forward to that game. And I just hope that we can get a result, go there, put in a performance, get a result. And, you know what I mean? Move on and try and get through the next stage. And then we deal with whichever Madrid it is after that. That's all you can do, really, isn't it? That's all you can do.
That is all you can do.
Far ahead.
And like you said there, yeah, like I do have some relative optimism. I know football's not one on paper. I know we got injuries and we got all of these things, but if we were serious and if we want to show the fans that we're serious, we need to be getting past PSV. As we both mentioned with the previous European upsets, we can't get complacent. I don't know between Atletico or Real Madrid which one is easier or whatnot, but we have to get through. If and a big if we beat PSV and we beat either Real Madrid or Atletico, then we can begin to dream. That's all we've got really. But
what
it's
I
just
would
a
say
mixture
though,
of things.
and I'm sure you agree with me on this, is that if we don't beat PSV in that last 16 game, again, that is not going to be a good look, because people are not going to be talking about injuries and, you know, lack of transfer window activity. They'll be looking at it like, Arsenal's supposed to be beating PSV. You didn't. You know what I mean?
Heads have to turn.
That's the cold light of day when it comes to football. At the end of the day, man, it's all about results and where you finish.
Winners win, losers
If you
explain, man.
If you don't beat PSV, people are not trying to hear no excuses about Saka being out and this. You know what I mean? They're just going to look and say, Arsenal, big club, you're playing against PSV, you're second in the Eredivisie. Right. You're supposed to be beating them. Boom, period. No, you know what I mean? And that's how it is.
No, but yeah, no, you're right. You're right, man. And that's the thing. Like, obviously, I can't, neither me, you, or anyone in the chat can control the collective narrative. And but we all know how it's going to go with Arsenal fans. We came into this season wanting to win a league. I don't think any Arsenal fan has been completely happy game to game this season. There's been some moments, you know, we boxed Sporting, we dealt with City, but it's been a snowball effect. And obviously, it's come to an head. Liverpool are running with it. We've dropped points against Nottingham Forest, which isn't the worst, but within sentiment, it's not. And then what? West Ham is the defeat. And as you said there, you now lose to PSV. People don't care about explaining and this, that, and the other.
No one ain't trying to hear it.
No one ain't trying to hear it. Somebody wants someone to answer for it. Depending on what Arsenal fan, it's Cronky this or that, the players this. Some people just want everything to burn. So I'm personally at that stage
and
now.
You know what though? That's how it should be, right? Because at the end of the day, that is what the fans and the people associated with Arsenal Football Club, that's why we support the club. You know what I mean? The club should be accountable to the fans. So it's only right that and that's why I say I'm going to wait till the end of the season. I want to see where Arsenal finish. I want to see how we end up. Okay, we're not going to win the league, but we're still in the Champions League. And I would argue as well, Deluded, that even though to all intents and purposes the league has gone, it's still very important that Arsenal try and win all their games, because you cannot allow the season to just slip away like this. You know what I mean? That would be really, really bad if we just kind of give up on everything and the players start turning out subpar performances and giving the impression that they're not fully committed, because the fans will pick up on that and there'll be hell to pay. So it's incumbent upon the club, the manager, the players to give it absolutely everything. I know that if we don't win the title, people still look at it as failure. But you know what I mean? You've got to give it everything. You've got to absolutely give it everything and try and do as well as you can in the league and as well as you can in the Champions League. And we just see where we go at the end of the season. Then people like me and you can make a reasoned judgment about the club, the fans, the manager, and then we start planning ahead for next season. That's it.
You said it there, man. It's like at the end of the day, like regardless of whatever team you support, the job is to win games. That's what football is. You got to put the ball in your opponent's back of the net, and we just have to win games for winning games' sake. Like, we're at the end of the day, the players are I must admit, in the last two games, I know they're representing the badge, the fans abroad, the fans that go to games, and all of these things. But I haven't felt they're representing the name on the back of their tops. They just need to put in performances for themselves. And you know, life is like football's like life. Sorry, in the sense of, when things are going good, they can be great. When things are bad, they can get a lot worse, especially if you're feeling sorry for yourselves, in which I hope that's not the players. Last thing before I let you get out of here, because it's actually in the title, I think, and I didn't ask it. What did you make of the Mikel Arteta over my dead body kind of rallying call talk before the game? Because his body's like there's a corpse now, isn't it? Really, I don't know. It didn't bang.
It did. Listen, at the end of the day, right? I get it. Like, in America, they've got this phrase which I applied to what Arteta said. You know, when they say he's supposed to say that, that's what he's supposed to say. You know what I mean? It did come across as a little bit, not cringy, but you know what I'm saying. It did come across as a little bit.
It's like Coach Carter, Mighty Ducks.
It's a little bit manufactured and all that. But listen, he's got to say that, and he's the manager. He's got to believe that Arsenal can go in and win all their games, and then, you know, you win all your games, or you try and win all your games, and you see what happens. In other words, you've got to give it your best. I absolutely 100% understand that. But as you said earlier, Deluded, you got to show me, man. You got to prove it to me. It's all right saying, "Oh, over my dead body." Well, you want to see the evidence of that on the pitch. You know what I mean? And listen, the Forest game, you can't doubt the effort. We still weren't at it, but you know, That's all you can do. Give your best, and we'll see how it goes at the end of the season, because there's still a lot to play for.
And that's the thing. It's like people, I feel personally with Arsenal fans, when everything's going great, they never, the majority never tell you to stop being mad positive. Now, when things are going bad, they tell you to stop being negative. I can only speak for myself. I praise and critique fairly. I just feel anything I'm saying, I mean, we've been quite balanced, and I don't feel we're effing and blinding, but anything we have said that could be defined as harsh, I keep saying this to my subscribers. It's not going to be as harsh as these players are going to feel being second best for a third year in a row. Nowhere near off the pace with Liverpool to go with last year, where we finished 2 points behind City. So we went into that game with some level of optimism to the point where,
crucially, last season when we finished second, we pushed City right till the last game. If you remember,
that's what I'm saying. Like the Premier League trophies were probably at both grounds and the billboards, and that you could somewhat touch it. That's going to be harsh, because these are the ones breathing.
It's finishing second, and then there's finishing second, if you know what I mean. Finishing second and pushing the person who, it's a bit like you're running a race, yeah? So there's a big difference between like you coming second and really pushing the winner right to the line, or if you're finishing second and you're like 20 yards behind, you know what I mean? And when the winner's already celebrating, you're there coming in huffing and puffing in second place. People look at it and say, yeah, he done second, but really and truly, you weren't really challenging the man who won the race. You know,
and again, the table doesn't tell the truth, Laurie. I mean, the table doesn't lie, but it doesn't always tell the truth. And I think Albert said it here. It's like we could finish second. Realistically, we're closer to 10th than we would be Liverpool. Well, that's why I always look at it with a mixed bag. It's like we do have a good foundation, but we've not kicked on. And I think there's an element across all on the field with Arteta, the recruitment. There's an element of complacency. Now, whether that's naivety or complacency or kind of what we've alluded to, the board are aligned with something different to what we want to do, I'll never know. But all I know
I would go stronger than that, Deluded. I think you're being too kind. I think this season, what's happened, I called it in a previous show I did, it's either gross incompetence or negligence. When you consider, you said yourself from last summer, we all knew what we needed. They didn't do it. Then you get to January, you know what, you're desperate and you still don't do anything. To me, that goes beyond just making mistakes. That is either gross incompetence or gross negligence.
Well, that's a conscious choice.
Either way, it's a bad look.
It's a bad look, Laurie, man. And again, I could flip it and say it's a conscious choice. I'm not saying they're doing this, but they could have sat there and said, F it, like, you work your magic. We look on course.
So just to take you up on that. So if you're saying, and I'm not saying you're wrong, if you're thinking that it's a conscious decision, then that to me comes under gross negligence.
Yeah.
Incompetence means that you were kind of stupid. Your ducks in a row and you're just not very good at the jobs in the board or whatever. But
no, it's fully that.
You knew what you were doing, and then you did it anyway, knowing the consequences. To me, that's negligence.
I think it's that. I genuinely think it's that. I genuinely think it's that. And I must admit, I kind of find myself going back to how I felt about Arsenal before 2022-23, where I love the club, support the club, give your praise and critiques. But in terms of ambition and we can win this and all the talk that they come out with, is as we both kept saying, it's a show me thing now. If you want to, I'll only believe we're going to win the Premier League trophy when I see these players hold it. I'll only believe you're serious about a striker when a man's holding the shirt, telling me I grew up watching Henry and Bergkamp. I'm past the point of lip service now, Laurie, man. Before I let you get out of it, because you got 9 minutes into your meeting, man, let people know where they can find you, man. They don't know you got your own channel as well as AFTV.
You can see it here. I'm trying to represent, man, LL Sports TV. Obviously, I'm on the AFTV channel as well. Love doing that. But I have got my own channel as well. I'm trying to grow that. So I appreciate you guys' support. I appreciate you, Deluded, for having me on. Really enjoyed it.
No, man, you're always welcome, man.
Return the favor and get you on my channel.
Make it happen, man. You got my number. Make it happen, man. Yeah. Make it happen, man. We'll do that.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate it. And look forward to chopping up with you again soon, bro.
Yeah, man.
Let me know all the people watching as well, of course. Love that.
Come on, people. Smash the like button, subscribe. Go and find LL Sports TV. Again, I'll drop a link. And yeah, man, Laurie, one love, man. Again, we'll talk, get things done, and we'll make it happen. And come on, you Gunners, even though there's nothing to come on about. But you don't know, people, man.
We'll see. There's still games left. 12 Premier League
hopefully, man. I hope there's a Liverpool capitulation. I dream about that, but in reality, it's peak, bro.
But even if they don't capitulate, let's just try and win all our games, finish as far as we can in the league, try and go for it in the Champions League, and then we'll have another conversation at the end of the season to see where we are. That's all you can do now.
Facts. And on that note, people, we're out, man. I'm back at 2:30. Laurie, one love, man. We'll get that sorted on your channel in a bit, my guy. Come on.
That's
Safe.
right. Respect.